Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Township of Wainfleet regular council meeting of October 21st, 2025 to order. Please stand for the national anthem. Okay, we would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Okay, seeing none. Please note that these meetings proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and YouTube.com. We hope everyone can join us on November 11th for our 12th annual Remembrance Day ceremony at 10:45 at the Cenotaph. Our next regular meeting of council is Tuesday, November 18th at 6:30 p.m. Are there any announcements or remarks from members of council? Seeing none. Okay, we're going to move straight into the adoption of the previous council minutes. So I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held September 30th, 2025, and the special meetings of council held October 2nd, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councilor McCullen? Councilor Anderson, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. We have no registered delegations this evening, and we also have nothing on the consent agenda this evening, so we're going to move right into staff reports. So we have ASR 18-2025, respecting the 2024 Asset Management Plan. Mr. Hart, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The report before you outlines the Township's 2024 Asset Management Plan, as well as an updated asset management policy. These documents ensure that Wainfleet is following Ontario Regulation 588-17 and guides how we manage, fund, and maintain our infrastructure assets over the long term. The report outlines that the total infrastructure portfolio of the Township is valued at $257.6 million, and approximately 77% of those assets are in fair or better condition. However, to maintain current levels of service, the AMP identifies a required annual investment of $10.3 million. Current annual funding is approximately $3.7 million, which leaves a $6.6 million annual funding gap. The AMP recommends a phased 2.6 annual increase in the tax levy over 20 years. However, due to the fact that the AMP does not account for inflation, staff are recommending continuing the Township's existing strategy of a 4% annual tax levy increase, which accelerates closing this funding gap to roughly 13 to 14 years, helps offset inflationary impacts, avoids future emergency costs, maintains infrastructure in better condition, and supports long-term taxpayer value. Work is already underway on the 2025 Asset Management Plan, which will work to incorporate proposed levels of service for all asset categories, reflect council direction, staff input, resident surveys, and best practices, strengthen the link between community expectations and financial realities. Additionally, I'd like to outline a few points of clarity in the asset management plan. Some of the quantities in the non-core assets include segments, not necessarily, for example, under buildings, We do not have like 18 fire buildings. They're based on segments as well. So each building has 6 segments, such as site work, exterior, HVAC, those kind of things. Additionally, under land improvements, we have items like basic structures and site work, which include shoreline access ramps, retaining walls, break walls, picnic shelters, and parking lots. Additionally, this is impacted by segments as well. We do not have 17 sports fields and courts. Some of the tennis courts, that includes the site work, the paving, that kind of stuff. I'd also like to outline under machinery and equipment. Fire has a very large quantity of equipment at 1,410. So this represents fire taking a detailed inventory of all of their equipment rather than our previous approaches of doing pooled assets. They wanted to get a detailed inventory. So that includes everything from hoses to their tools and other things like that. Lastly, I wanted to touch on the growth assumptions. While it doesn't impact the 2024 asset management plan, it will impact the 2025. These growth assumptions in this asset management plan are based on the old official plan, and as we work to update and get a new official plan, we will update these figures. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. So I have a motion that the Administrative Staff Report ASR 18-2025 respecting the 2024 Asset Management Plan be received, and that Council adopt the 2024 Asset Management Plan as presented and direct staff to continue applying a combined 4% annual levy increase to the capital levy and infrastructure levy as the preferred strategy for closing the infrastructure funding gap, and that Council adopt the new asset management policy attached as Appendix B, which incorporates recommendations from the consultant review and helps achieve compliance with the Ontario Regulation 588-17. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Van Fleet, Councillor McClellan, any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, and that is carried. Okay, moving on to the ASR 19-2025 respecting the South Niagara Hospital contribution. Mr. Hart, once again, can you please provide a brief overview or report?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this report revisits the South Niagara Hospital contribution requests, which was deferred by Council on September 9th, 2025, pending updated information from the 2024 Asset Management Plan, as well as the draft 2026 budget. So to recap the previous report, Niagara Health has requested a $2.2 million contribution from the Township toward the local share of the hospital project. Council is asked to provide direction on whether to contribute the full amount or reduce amount, any funding options for the previous, or not to contribute an amount given the Township's financial position and infrastructure needs. Considerations for Council include that the 2024 Asset Management Plan identifies a $6.6 million annual infrastructure gap. The 2026 draft budget is projecting a minimum 5% levy increase, and our reserves are currently estimated to be at $5.49 million at the end of fiscal year 2025, which represents approximately 57% of our levy, which is very close to the recommended minimum level of 50%. So this means that any hospital contribution would either add an additional tax pressure to our levy or divert funds from the infrastructure renewal and maintenance or from our reserves. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Are there any members of Council that wish to make a motion? Councillor McClellan, go ahead.
Yeah, a motion, we give them nothing.
Okay. So a motion for no contribution at this time? Okay. All right. Can we get a seconder? Councillor Van Fleet, thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Now moving on to ASR 20-2025, respecting the reserve and reserve fund consolidation and policy. Once again, Mr. Hart, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this report presents a comprehensive consolidation and update of the township's reserve and reserve funds, along with a new reserve and reserve fund policy. The goal is to simplify the structure, eliminate redundancy, and align reserve names and uses with their intended financial purposes. These changes will strengthen transparency, flexibility, and long-term financial sustainability. The township currently maintains over 25 individual reserves. Several are legacy with overlapping purposes, unclear usages, or outdated naming conventions. Staff undertook a review to consolidate related or redundant reserves, standardize naming, and clearly define allowable uses as well as funding sources. So this aligns with best practices in municipal financial management and supports future asset management and budgeting frameworks. The only direct financial impact arises from the Environmental Sustainability Reserve. So this redirects interest earned away from the general operations of the township, which will require a levy offset of approximately $30,000 or 0.33% of the tax levy. So this was based on staff direction to ensure that the base principle of the tree reserve was maintained and funded future requirements without depleting the principal balance. So this impact will be addressed through the 2026 budget process. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. So I have a motion that the report ASR 2025 regarding the reserve and reserve fund consolidation and policy be received, and that council approves Appendix B, reserve and reserve fund policy. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Gilmore, or Councilor Anderson, sorry. Any discussion? Really, nothing?
Joan, you gotta start, Jay.
All right. I just see him out of the corner of my eye first, okay? All right, with that, there's no discussion, so I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Sorry, Councilor Anderson.
He calls me Mrs. Van Vliet. We're in trouble.
Having a rough 3 weeks, okay? All right, moving on to bylaw enforcement staff reports. The memorandum respecting the traffic and parking bylaw 10/2018 amendment of Maple Road. Ms. Earl, can you please provide a brief overview of your memo? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the rest of council. Staff are bringing forward for council's consideration a draft amendment to the township's traffic and parking bylaw number 010-2018. This is in response to a complaint regarding parking on the unopened portion of the Maple Road allowance. In an effort to resolve the issue of an undersized lot of record with limited available space for on-site parking, council directed staff to prepare an amendment to the bylaw to allow for limited long-term parking through permit only. That's weird. Sorry, I lost my notes, but in any event, through council's direction, we made the amendments appropriately. These amendments are going to allow for a different schedule to be implemented, and through that schedule, any additional site-specific issues throughout the township will also be able to be addressed. So the bylaw is on the agenda for this evening for council's consideration under staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Earl. So I have a motion that the memorandum respecting the traffic and parking bylaw amendment for Maple Road be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved and acted upon. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor Anderson and Councilor Gilmore. Thank you.
Wow, you got it right.
No applause? Come on. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Just some clarity on that. It was driven by a particular sort of road width and parking and et cetera to a particular address. So is the long-term permit an open long-term permit to anyone or to that particularly addressed address?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. So right now, the way the schedule is written, that it includes Maple Road and will only be allowed through a residential parking permit issued annually to that individual landowner that we've previously identified.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. All right, so moving on to Public Works staff reports. PWSR 19-2025, respecting the request for a new streetlight. Mr. Nan, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to all the members of council.
This report outlines a request that was received for a new street light at the location of 41711 Millrace Road. At the time, staff entered into the process that was approved by council for such a request. During the investigation, we realized that it was at the intersection of Church Street and Millrace Street, or Millrace Road. Staff also noticed at the time that the intersection currently is not illuminated. So staff are recommending that we install a street light at that location for the intersections, which will also assist the resident. And then that'll be included in the operating budget. I'm available for any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Nan. So I have a motion that Public Works Staff Report PWSR 19-2025 respecting the request for streetlight be received, and that council direct staff to install a single streetlight at the intersection of Church Street and Millrace Road for public safety and to benefit the residents of the township, and that the cost be applied to the operating budget of the Operations Department pending the 2026 budget approval by council. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Richard, does that interfere with sort of some speculated work on Church Napoleon and Lee, like in the timeline of putting that in for the folks? Will that be interrupted by the road work?
Through your worship, it does not. There's currently a hydro pole that's set back from the edge of the road currently, and the plan is to mount it on that existing pole. It will have a 22-foot arm extension that will be coming off of that pole to bring it in towards the intersection, so it won't affect any future work.
Thank you, Richard.
Any other discussion? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So Richard, it says the average cost for a hydro, so every year it's just $34. It's not, that's it. When you have your estimate here, it says it's $34 a year for electricity. Is that correct? Through your worship, sorry, that's 34, that's per month. Okay. And it's on a fixed budget based on wattages. We've got several budgets or several bills, and we broke them out based on wattages so we can get a better rate. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So 34 a month, is that the same as the 200 and some odd streetlights? Are they all different? Are they all the new LEDs? Like, is it 34 for the 200 each?
Through your worship, it's actually combined. So there's, in that section of the budget for that street light, it's roughly $34. We have, I believe there's 5 different bill segments for the higher wattages, 100, then 80s, then 50s. 50s and 60s are together, and then the lower wattages. So I believe there's, I think there's 4 hydro accounts for the different street lights. And that's to get better wattage rates, rather than the way we had it years ago was a fixed rate for all of them, and we were paying the full amount for, it didn't matter what wattage we used.
Thank you, Richard.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? As carried. Okay, going to move into PWSR 2025, respecting the cleaning service contract. Mr. Nan, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, Worship, through yourself to members of council. Our current cleaning contract is due for renewal. Staff went out for an RFQ to receive bids from various companies. We did reach out to additional companies, but we did receive 3 bids at the time of closing. Staff are recommending that it's awarded to the lowest priced contractor, which is A1 Cleaning Company Incorporated. And I'm available for questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Nan. So I have a motion that Public Works Staff Report PWSR 2025 respecting the purchase of a cleaning services contract be received, and that council direct the manager of operations to award the cleaning services contract from January 16th, 2026 through January 16th, 2028 to A1 Cleaning Company Incorporated. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Van Fleet. Any discussion? Councilor Van Fleet, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Richard. Richard, I'm just wondering, how often does the cleaning company come in? Like in here?
In this room, they come in after every council meeting, but town hall, they're here every evening. Public Works every evening, and the library every evening. During the week.
Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
You, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Richard, you might want to ask them to do a little better job in here on this part, because some days there's either somebody coming or going here. I'm not sure which it is with the dust that's under this shelf, so.
Through your worship, staff did have discussions during the pre-council meeting today regarding this, and the plan is for staff to be meeting with the contractor in advance of the award to outline the expectations and the requirements.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so we have no items on correspondence of correspondence on the agenda for consideration this evening, so we're going to move to bylaws. So I have a motion that the following bylaws be read and passed this 21st day of October 2025. First one, bylaw number 38, 2025, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 15, 2025, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk for the corporation of the Township of Wainfleet. And the second one, bylaw number 39, 2025, being a bylaw to amend parking bylaw to amend bylaw number 10, 2018, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and parking in the township. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Van Fleet and Councillor McClellan, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving into notices of motion. Councillor McClellan, you've provided notice at our last regular meeting of your intention to make a motion this evening respecting MPAC assessments for approved building lots. Would you like to make your motion?
That staff be directed to provide and update information to the MPAC Corporation upon final approval of development applications in the township, so that individual building lots are subject to the appropriate assessment and taxation.
Thank you. Can we get a seconder? Councillor Gilmore, any discussion? Councillor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, I should have asked the mover, but in the report, can we also get the current inventory of lots? I mean, is that possible to get the inventory of available lots? I was going to spin off a little bit on the asset management thing, statistics, but I'd be curious whether the current inventory is even remotely close to the growth projections that were listed that need to be updated in that report, which Cameron said would happen. But it'd be nice to know what the inventory is, available inventory.
Madam CEO?
So through the mayor to all of council, so we can certainly take that as staff direction. That wouldn't be an MPAC initiative, that would be an internal initiative. So we can certainly task the planning staff with taking inventory of what is approved. So MPAC does just understanding the motion that is on the floor. MPAC currently does when there is a development that's approved or a severance comes through, we get the apportionment from MPAC. So what they do is when it goes to land registry, it does come back to us, and they assume everything is a buildable lot based on the fact that they have access to our zoning and our official plan. So they understand unless we specify that it's not buildable, they assume everything is buildable, and that will be captured on the following reassessment.
Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, we already know that we're not allowed to have any lot creation, so the inventory outside of the current hamlets that are approved is static. So I just want to know what the number is as of now, because it's really not going to change much unless there's some new hamlet development that I'm not aware of. So we should know what our number is, and then that'll help you come up with some realistic numbers in this thing, because those numbers are out to lunch.
So through the mayor to all of council, thank you, I appreciate that comment. And we definitely will look into that, but again, they're two kind of separate issues, running parallel, I understand, but we can definitely take that as staff direction to look into that, and we will get back to council on that.
Councilor McClellan first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so if I can forward, the reason I made this motion was I asked that question, and it's what's approved for subdivisions and/or condo corporations. I was told we're somewhere between 90 and 100. So if they're paying it as house lots, that's great. If you go and get the lot and then you decide you're going to let somebody keep farming it for 10 years, that doesn't do us any good. And there's where the problem lies, is it's just they're land banking and nothing's happening, and that's just wrong, right? Because we get very little income, and if the town, we need to grow. I don't care what anybody says, you want to keep little old Wainfleet. We need to get somewhere between 25 and 50 houses a year so we can keep taxes reasonable. Otherwise, prepare to pay for a lot of money for your taxes for the rest of the time we're here.
So through the mayor to all of council, so once the lot's created, as suggested, MPAC does consider it to be a buildable lot. However, farming is a different situation. If they apply for their farm license and they're granted that, and they can provide that information to MPAC, they can farm it. So we can't force them to not farm it because it's a lot and because it could be built on. It's based on if they can apply for the license and that's what they're actively doing on the lot, and they can provide $7,000 or more worth of revenue of farm revenue, then we can't interfere with that. Like, it's an MPAC situation. It's not at the township level.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can. So if we approve a subdivision, we approve a condominium. Can we not put a deadline if you're not building on this 2 years after you meet all approvals, then you have to come back and get an extension from us, and if you don't get the extension, then you lose everything you spent your money on. So that'll stop this land banking, because it's not helping us at all. Lindsay, whoever wants to.
Miss Earl, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What's important here is to remember that once they receive draft approval, that's different from final approval. So draft approval is the 3-year time limit where they can apply for an extension after that if they don't complete all of their conditions that we've imposed on that development. We could include new conditions in the final agreement through the subdivision agreement that gets registered on title about timelines for development. Typically, it's tied to the servicing or the primary services before we release any type of letter of credit, but we could also do it for percentage of building permits or building starts. So we do have that opportunity to include that. It's a little bit more risky because a lot of the times we would see developers appeal that type of condition, which they have right to, but it hasn't been tested, so that's something that we could look to for the next development coming forward.
So if I can, so my experience in this is, so that's great. So now comes a guy and he wants to get a severance, or he wants to do something in the region, which is out of it now, but the town will say, well, we already have 100 lots available, so we don't need your lot, so it's not going. And then that might be the guy that's going to build everything. And we just told them no. And the other ones sit there and they might sit there 20 years before anything gets done on it. That's not helping us as a town one little bit, right? Like, we need the houses built, we need the tax dollars. Or like I say, everybody else is paying for these people to make interest on their money. It's just doesn't work right. And maybe it's a problem everywhere, but it really hurts small towns.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just to clarify for me, Lindsay, is there a different tax application rate for someone who has a lot of record that's 2 acres versus someone who has a lot of record that is 5 acres? Obviously, we're just talking land acreage, but are those taxed differently? I'm just wondering what the tax margins are on those.
Ms. Earl?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not the tax expert, but I could take a first crack at it. Typically, MPAC assesses the property based on what the current land use is, regardless of what the zoning is. So like Mallory had mentioned previously, that if it is agricultural, they could have the agricultural tax assessment, regardless of lot size.
So if I may continue, so through the mayor, so if that's an agricultural lot, okay, I guess that's a separate, spots on the leopard. But what about our lots that are lots of record within residential zones? Like if there's a lot of record created along the lake shore, which is basically, fully residential, is that taxed differently somehow? Even though it's vacant, they're not building on it? Is it just land area tax that they pay?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So through the mayor to Councillor Anderson and all of council. So there are different tax classes. If it is vacant, there is a vacant residential tax rate, which is slightly lower than the residential rate. However, as mentioned previously, everything is assumed to be buildable unless we advise that it is not buildable. So it would still be assessed at a higher rate, assuming that somebody could buy this as a building lot and construct a home. Does that answer your question? Because
Yes, thank you, Mallory, that portion. And so further to John's, through you, Mayor, sorry, further to John's question, I know that I've seen sort of approvals that had 35 recommendations for approval to final, and then we had a large project that had 61 conditions to approval to a final, and so the 61 conditions are met. But when all the conditions are met, we don't have any sort of direction to those folks that there's a time limit to start building. I mean, they get final approval. I think you said something about 3 years and then a renewal, but is that how that works?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. So that was through the draft approval. So they get their first stage, they have to meet their conditions. That can be your 3 years. And then 1 year extensions after that, should council wish. If council does not grant extensions and they don't complete those conditions, the subdivision or condominium would lapse. Then they'd have to start over again. When we impose conditions for final approval, most of those conditions transfer over into the final subdivision agreement. So there's still conditions in there that have to be met and have to be adhered to because that gets registered on title. So failing, if we did do something like a crafty condition about timelines and starts, which is possible, then if they are not in accordance and or violate that agreement, then we can pursue that under other legal avenues.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, just to continue. So basically, when we go through the whole process and we get to final and we get the final recommendations and they make all the final, got it all done, and if I really wanted to, I could, there's nothing else I need to do under township mitigation, I could start building. But if they don't choose to build, and that sits as a static piece of property, we don't have any means, I think this is what John was getting at, we don't have any means to say, you're all approved, you're all done, you've made all the recommendations, you could build tomorrow, but as I'm hearing this, they could build 10 years from now, correct? We have no timeline on a build-out, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to my knowledge, we don't have any timelines that were associated with any conditions that we've imposed in any of the current developments that have been approved. There is some policies in the Planning Act that would allow council to deem a subdivision not a subdivision after so long, and I believe historically that was around 8 years. So that's something that staff could look into to see if there's been any changes at that level. But it's also something that we could impose for future development.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Lindsay.
Councilor Cullen?
You, Mr. Mayor. Can we direct Lindsay to look at that? I mean, maybe it should be 5 years or 4 years, or at least start building maybe in 2 years. And we've got to look at this, right? It's just, it's sitting there. We've approved it. We've done all the work. We haven't got anything, and we're not getting any taxes. And somebody will say, you have 100 lots, so you don't need any more. Yet nobody's building on any of these 100 lots through town.
Yep.
That's a problem for the town as financially as well as growing. So we got to look at something.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so staff cannot impose, or council cannot impose anything on recently or already approved development, but we can include that for the next development and come up with some wording for the conditions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Earl. Any other discussion? Councilor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I do appreciate Councilor McClellan's concerns. My only word of caution, I mean, I want to see the report, but I'm a little, I'd be reluctant to get too heavy-handed in telling people what to do, when to do, and how to do it. Because we already have way too much of that going on in our lives already. And it may be a factor of, there could be market timing, it can be interest problems, there can be lots of reasons why they can't do it. I'm okay with looking at the whole thing. I'm just giving fair warning that if there's too much heavy-handed intervention, I'm not going to line up and support that, because I don't agree with any of that, and we have too much of that already. I want to see stuff happen, yes, but I'm not in favor of telling people what businesses, what they can do, when they can do, and how they should be doing it. So we need to balance it all out, and yeah, try to move things forward. But we have to be concerned with what can be going on at any given time in the economy in this country.
Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
I don't disagree with Council Gilmore, but over the last 20 years, it's been boom time, and there's lots that have sat here and sat here and sat here. We've had great interest rates, we've had lousy interest rates. Nothing is getting built on stuff that's already been approved. That's not helping us at all. All I want to do is have some way of saying, hey, move along or you're going to lose it. Let somebody else do it then, because there are other people that will go ahead and do it. Only we have too many lots, according to some levels of government, that tell us we can't do what we're doing. So I understand the upper hand coming down and hitting us. I don't want to be that, but I want to be able to push a little bit.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that's carried. Okay, with that, I now have a motion that council move into closed session to discuss an item under section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, 2 items involving staffing matters, and then a item under section 239(2)K of the Municipal Act 2001, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, 1 item, an agreement matter, and lastly, the minutes of the closed meetings of council held September 30th, 2025. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Anderson? Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that is carried. We'll move into closed.